Hello, I'm Isaiah Sterling, and for our Veteran Spotlight today, I'm here with John Lindholm.
Hi.
So, John, where are you from?
Well, I'm from here now. I grew up down in Kingman County on a farm and went to high school in Cheney, so that's where I was when I went into service.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back after the service and finished up and went professionally in engineering. But raised on a farm down there. Went to Cheney High School. Graduated from high school. I was 17 and couldn't go to work in the industry because you had to be 18. So I came one semester to Kansas State, and that's when Pearl Harbor was bombed. And then I took a special machining course up here, and then went down to Boeing, Wichita to help tool up for the B-29. So I worked down there about 10 months as a tool maker. And then when they lowered the draft to 18, my folks said, you can enlist. So I went up in Fort Riley and enlisted in the Army Air Corps. And of course, that's an interesting thing there, is that the height for people in pilot training is 6'4", and Wichita University measured me 6'5" and a quarter that September before I enlisted. But you can shrink down a little bit, so I was able to get through it. And I was called up in March of '43 and went out to Kearns, Utah for boot camp. And if you think the weather changes bad in Kansas, you ought to go out there. We had dust storms, rain, snow, and sleet all in one day. And then from there, we went to a CTD, College Training Detachment, at Creighton University in Omaha, and out to Santa Ana, California, where I took a battery of tests physically and mentally and see whether I could qualify to be a pilot, navigator, or bombardier. And I qualified for all three, and I had to make a choice, which was easy: pilot. That was my first choice. If I didn't qualify for it, I'd rather be a navigator, but I did. And so we went through pre-flight there at Santa Ana, California, and then on November the 3rd, we arrived at Thunderbird number 1, which is Glendale, Arizona, not far from Phoenix, for primary flight training. And we flew the Stearman BT-17 bi-wing plane. And we went through training there and got through without too much trouble. I did have a leave to come home for my grandmother's funeral. I don't know how they got that worked out. And I went back, and so that made me one class later than I would have before. And so I didn't do much way of instruction while I was there. The rest of the month, I got to check out a plane and go do what I wanted to. So I fly. And then we went by train. We go everywhere by train except when we're flying on training. We went to Lancaster, California, which is the west end of the Mojave Desert. And that's where we had basic flight training, and we flew what they call the Volby vibrator. It's the BT-13 single engine, low wing. And then we got through there. Then we went to Pecos, Texas for advanced flight training. And there we flew the Cessna AT-17. And then in June of '44 is when I got my commission in wings and graduated. And so from there I went to Roswell, New Mexico to B-17 transition. I learned to fly a B-17 out there, and fly it and land it and take off and so forth. Did a little formation flying, but not much. Then went to Lincoln, picked up a crew, went to Dyersburg, Tennessee, where I had crew training. And I don't know how many crews were down there. Our crew number was 9091. I don't know what the significance of those numbers is, except in the sequencing there. But we were there from late October until January, and flying there, taking out crew up, flying. We went some gunnery practice. We went some long distance navigation, both night and day, and did some bomb training too with my bombardier. And in January of '45, well, we got our orders to go to Lincoln, and then from there back to New Jersey and wait for a ship to pick us up to take us to Europe. And while we were in Dyersburg, we made 3 attempts for long distance cross country at night. First one, we went from Dyersburg up to Toledo area and around that, and Cleveland, and then back around. And the problem there was that the instructor navigator, who was supposed to be checking my navigator out, didn't know where he was. And he wouldn't believe me when I told him where he was, because I had directional radio, you know, so I could know that. And my navigator knew where we were, and we agreed. So we just had to go back, and he had to do it again. Well, next time we went from Dyersburg to by west Little Rock, Arkansas, and then down to Fort Worth, Dallas area, and came back. And we weren't even back to the turning point at Little Rock when my radio operator came on the intercom and said, all the air bases and airports are closed except Little Rock and Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so we were that close to Little Rock, and we did get on the ground 15 minutes before it closed. And so the weather was there, and we were there over Christmas then, spending time in Little Rock, Arkansas. And when it cleared up, then we finally got on back to the base. Then we had to make another flight because we didn't get that one completed. So he had a good chance to do it, and we went down the southeast part then, Atlanta, Georgia, and around that way. Then in January, we'd passed, so we took our physicals, got ready to go overseas. Well, I decided it was time to stand up to see what they'd say, since I was all crew trained, everything ready to go. I didn't think they'd say anything about it. And Sergeant called me in. He says, what about this 6'5"? And I said, well, sir, they've never measured me that tall in the Army before. I always scrunched down to get the 6'4" limit.
There you go.
Okay, then we went back to Lincoln, got issued flight suits, and they added about 5 inches on the bottom of my flight suit so as to get down to my shoes. So, and then we went to New Jersey and were there about 5-10 days before the ship got back from taking another crew over. And that time, while we were there, we got to go into New York City a couple of times. Went up the Empire State Building. It was in the fog, but I thought, well, at least I've got to go up it, whether it's fog or not. Then we went by ship then across the North Atlantic, came down in between Ireland and England, or Scotland, you might say, down to Liverpool, England, and that's where we got off. But when we got in the North Sea, it was pretty rough weather, and we went down to eat, and we had 2 meals a day when we were on the ship. And we went down to the second meal while we were standing there in line, and all of a sudden it rolled. I was holding right onto a post, so I grabbed it, and I grabbed the guy going the other way. And all the trays went off the table, but there was a lip about that big, but they still went over it. So they sent us back to our quarters and cleaned up, and then we had to go back down and eat. Then we got off at Liverpool and got on a train and went to Stone, England, which was a deployment center. I was there, I think, 3 or 4 days before they sent 5 crews to the 457th Bomb Group, which is at Glatton, England, which is almost straight north of London, about 10 miles south of Peterborough, if you want to go look it up. And we got in there, and of course, every time you change a station, they check you out in the airplane. They don't trust you. And so what we did was had a checkout, and kind of a scary thing because in England there are a lot of brick factories and a lot of chimneys, the brick factories, and we go through the clouds and come back down through the clouds, and we may be right on line with a chimney.
Mm-hmm.
If your company had enough clearance, then you can dock them, just go around them. Then we flew our first mission. I had another pilot fly as co-pilot on my first mission, and then the second mission, I had my own crew, co-pilot, and all the crew went together. The second mission was over Munich, Germany, bombing the railroad yards there. We were up close to 30,000 feet, but we got hit by flak. Had over 100 holes in the airplane. Waste gunner was killed, radio operator was wounded, oxygen system was shot out. We didn't lose any engines, any fuel, tires were all right, so we were able to get clear back to the base. We had to drop out of the group to get down because of our oxygen lack, but then we got back into the group and followed it on the way back to the base. And so then since I had a bombardier and a navigator, which some crews didn't have at that time, we were selected to be a lead crew, and that required flying some missions, training missions, and took longer to get I never got my 30 missions in that way. But the other 4 crews that I took into that base with me, they all got their 35 missions flying wing and left before the war ended. And so I was there, but didn't have much happen then until our 11th mission, which was to bomb an airfield in northwest Germany, just over past Holland and Belgium. And we got hit there again by flak. And I was flying deputy lead, but lead plane lost their airspeed indicator, so they couldn't do it. I lost my right 2 engines, so I had to get out of formation. I just got out of formation and dropped the bombs in the field, and we struggled our way back to the base. But the piece of flak came through the windshield right above the glass between it and the top one and hit my helmet, then embedded into the radio up here. Didn't know where it gone until I tried to tune the radio to the base and couldn't tune it. And so there, these things, I have some of that upstairs if you want to come up and see it sometime. But those are the only 2 missions that we really got hit on. We went to a lot of different places. One of them was a radar mission to hit a ship, destroyer in dry dock straight north of Berlin, up on the sea there. And we never did see it, but reconnaissance planes got pictures of it, and we did hit the target. So that's one thing. And then after about 20 or 12 missions, we got to go on R&R, rest and recuperate, flak vacations, what we call it. And we went down to a manor that was pretty close to Southampton and spent most of the week there, then back. And then I was in London when VE Day happened, and I got some lousy pictures of the celebration in downtown London from it. And after that, we flew a couple of trips just to take our ground personnel, the mechanics and people, to see the damage we did. So we'd load a bunch of them up and we'd go over and fly us route around there showing them the damage. And of course, the city of Cologne the cathedral stood up by itself. All around it was rubble. And how it survived, I'll never know, but it sure did. Then we were asked to fly liberated prisoners of war out of Linz, Austria. And so we did that, flew them over to an air base near Paris. Then what I flew out were liberated French officers. And we put plywood in the bomb bay, so we put a lot more people in there and there. And then shortly after that, we had our orders, which was a 30-day delay en route to Okinawa. So we flew out of our base to Wales, to Iceland, and Goose Bay, Labrador. We could have landed if we had problems on Greenland, but we didn't have problems. And then into Bradley Field, Connecticut. Then from there, I went on our 30 days and came back where they dropped the 2 bombs. And so they put us on hold. And then they finally canceled our orders to go there. And then we went, and then I got sent to Wackler Air Base, which is out here between Russell and Hayes, Kansas, to be a B-29 instructor. Never having been in one. Got out there, I landed there on VJ Day though, so never did get checked out of it. But they had a B-17 there, and I ferried a lot of people different places from there, and also took a bunch of the guys that came in with me, which were 24 pilots, out to get their flight time in. And then from there, we got sent back to Lincoln to get out of the service. I stayed in the reserves and retired from there as a major in the reserves. And so, and in January of '46, I came back to K-State to start school. Again, got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and I got one in business administration too, because the sequencing courses I couldn't take a full load, so I decided to get a business degree a long time, and so I could take about 12 hours of engineering work and about 8 or 9 hours of business school, and that was about a load. And we graduated, and I went to work I got married in the meantime. Started going with Mildred, and when I got back to school in January '46, and we got married June of '47, which is 66 years ago last Saturday. And I worked in industry, General Electric Company in Fort Wayne for 3 years, Midwest Research in Kansas City for a couple of years, and I started a graduate program at KU, got my master's, and I went to Purdue and got my doctorate. And I came here on the faculty in 1960 and retired in '89. And in the '60s, Kansas State had a project with the University of Asyut in Egypt, which is Upper Egypt, and there were 5 of us went over there to help get the engineering program started there. So I took a family over there for a couple of years, came back, and got a lot of kids all through school, and retired in January of '89. Anything else you want to know?
That's pretty much it. Oh, John, thank you very much for your service. You're a wonderful person.
Thank you.
Any words of wisdom you'd want to say to the Boys Staters who are watching this?
Well, as I told my floor up there, I said, get involved. If you're going to do anything, get involved. Don't just join something for the fact to have it on your resume. Get involved. If you want to do volunteer work, okay. But here at Boys State, I think the guys that have gotten involved and done a lot of things have a lot of better appreciation of what's going on here and understanding of it. And this is about my 18th year, I think 17th, 18th year that I've been an advisor here. I think probably they'll kick me out pretty soon since I'm crowding on to 90. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take it easy.
Oh, yeah.